particular in 2014 were heartbroken, devastated, and I'm sure there is a lot of anger in Tallahassee as a result of this. Just a terribly unfortunate set of circumstances that left Mike Norvell, who has done a fabulous job at Florida State, put the Seminoles in position, and now.
So, as you know by now, Florida State is not in, and really, it's not like I didn't kind of think that was going to happen, but some of the responses from much of the so-called TV pundits or whatnot, and they all kind of agreed with what the College Football Playoff Committee did. And to an extent, I kind of do. I think Jordan Travis' injury limited Florida State's ability to win a national championship. But the one issue that I do have with what I heard a lot of people say was that you can't keep the SEC out. And I think that's an absolute wrong case to make. Nowhere in the rules, the bullet point rules, for making a case for a team to make the Final Four is you have to allow an SEC team in. Right? That's not one of the rule sets. And that is the thing that I heard a lot of people say, and one I totally disagree with. I think Florida State probably should have made it, just for the simple fact you cannot justify Alabama or Georgia is one of the 4 best teams in college football. Period. Georgia beat, Missouri, Ole Miss, Tennessee. And are they a better team than those 3 teams? Yeah. So they should be ranked higher than them. They are. Did Alabama beat them? Beat Georgia, that is? Yeah. Alabama beat Georgia. They beat also everybody else in the SEC. Alabama's only loss was to Texas, who's ranked above them. And for those people that say, oh, well, Texas shouldn't have gone in because their strength of schedule or whatever, well, you don't know what Oklahoma would have been if they didn't have injuries. Much like Florida State. Oklahoma had injuries in the middle of the year after they beat Texas, and then they lost 2 games. It is what it is. Injuries are part of the game. We all know that. But you can't forecast losses. You can't say, this player is out, therefore you shouldn't participate. Ohio State a couple years ago was a perfect case point of that. And we also, can say that maybe Florida State goes and leans more heavily on the Wildcat, type of offense, because they did that a couple times in the SEC championship game against Louisville, and that was their best offense during the game. They really kind of went a little bit more to that in the second half. That is when they actually did start to get some offense going. But to say to a team that you can't go because we have to let in an SEC team, that's basically what happened. That's the one I don't agree with. I don't know. Is Alabama better than Florida State? I don't know. Because Alabama, and everybody talks about how Jalen Milroe has gotten better throughout the year, but he's been inconsistent throughout the year. Has he gotten the job done since they lost to Texas? Yeah, they have gotten the job done. But Florida State, definitely deserved a shot. deserved a shot. So, and it sucks. But if you're the coach, Mike Norvell, the players there definitely feel for you. But you can't lash out. You can't lash out. You can't go out there and put out a statement lashing out the playoff committee. This is my approach. Okay, this is my approach. You kind of say something. I wrote a little something. I'm going to kind of speak to it here. But this is what you say. You say something along the lines of, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for guiding you. I'm sorry for pushing you. I'm sorry for making you run. I'm sorry you sacrificed. I'm sorry you got hurt. I'm sorry you responded to adversity. I'm sorry we didn't lose. I'm sorry we didn't cheat. I'm sorry we dreamed. I'm sorry you're a champion. I'm sorry you're perfect. I'm sorry you're hurting. I'm sorry I failed you. I'm not sorry. I love you. And that's the kind of message that you want to send. Because you want to know and tell the team, and I'm sure he did, but you want to tell the team, like, hey, I'm here for you. I love you guys for everything that you did, everything that you put in. But you need to make it to where they did everything right. And the committee didn't. I'm not going to say ESPN had bigger objectives here to have Alabama put in, because the committee doesn't really look at it that way. And from everything that we've heard, that wasn't really a factor. It was a factor of, Jordan Travis getting hurt. He's handled it with class. It really sucks for him. I feel like him being out diminishes the team. I do feel that. And it is one that hopefully, I mean, he's going on to the NFL. We'll never see him in college again, but it just sucks. Feel bad for him because he feels like he let the team down. That's what it came down to. He feels like he let the team down. And I couldn't imagine what he felt during that reveal. And I'm sure they probably realized the way the cookie was going to crumble once they saw Texas pop up at 3. Once they saw that, I think they kind of realized that they were in real trouble, because there was no reason to move Texas past Florida State unless they were also going to move Alabama to 4. The other thing I would agree was some people have said, and to some certain extent, if Florida State's not good enough to beat these 4 teams, are they good enough to beat Georgia? Are they good enough to beat Ohio State? Are they good enough to beat Oregon? Then why not move them down to 7, 8? I would kind of agree with that, but I would also say if valuing a conference championship, Power 5 conference champion matters, then maybe you do put them at 5. But I mean, if they're an undefeated Power 5, how do you say that they're not a top 4 team over Bama? To say that Bama and Georgia are top 4 teams, I think it's just asinine, really. I think it's just disrespectful of the team that they had over the previous couple of years and the talent that they had go to the NFL last season, because Georgia lost some of the best talent we've ever seen go to the NFL. It's the same thing with, Alabama. Alabama lost Bryce Young, top number 1 overall pick. So to say that, Alabama and Georgia were going to be top 4 teams this year, I mean, I don't really agree with it. Even if they are the top 2 teams in the SEC, it doesn't mean they're the top 4 teams in the country. And that's where I didn't like hearing certain people say, but Alabama's the SEC champ. That's not a criteria. It criteria is not to be the SEC champ. They don't get an automatic bid. This is where you got to look and say, this team is super good at this and can win this way. And that's what people didn't look at Florida State. Florida State, you know, people say they have an elite defense. I don't really believe that. I mean, I'll make the case, but I don't really believe that. I just think they played inferior offensive opponents in the ACC this year. But you still went undefeated, man. You still won with a backup quarterback twice, right? Because Jordan Travis went out in the first quarter of the game that he got hurt. And so basically you play with your backup quarterback that game. And when they beat Florida in the Swamp, rivalry game, it's never going to be easy, right? Alabama, Auburn. And then third string quarterback and win the ACC championship game with a third string quarterback. To say that you don't get a shot when you overcome adversity is disrespectful to 51 players on that team. So, 52 players, really, if you want to throw Jordan Travis in there. But as far as the rankings, you know, we know Michigan, Washington, Texas, Alabama are going to be in it. Florida State, Georgia are in it. And here's the interesting thing. So, oh my God, this is going to be so great. So, Florida State, Georgia are playing each other. What happens if Florida State beats Georgia by 14? Right? Alabama only beat Georgia by 3. So, what if Florida State wins by 10 or more on Georgia? Does that prove that Florida State was better than Bama? Oh, man. Oh, and that would be with a backup quarterback. Man. Wouldn't it suck if Michael Penix got hurt in the first quarter against Texas? Wouldn't it suck if Jalen Milroe got hurt in the first quarter against Michigan? Injuries are part of the game. Would those teams be able to respond? Can you forecast, like, what's the backup quarterback going to be able to do for those teams, right? If that happens. I'm not saying that would happen. I don't want it to happen. I don't ever want anybody to get hurt, but it happens. But it was actually kind of funny to look and see some of those reactions that weekend. Florida State, really feel for you. Showed that one. Here's I tried to find a reaction video for all 4 of the teams. And I liked Michigan's the most because here was the reaction when Alabama was announced. You can see it on the back screen here. Nice, cool party. First off, really cool that they did this big auditorium. Very cool. Michigan and Washington's already announced. You got Texas and Georgia. They're at 6, so you're just looking for the 4 or 5 spots to get announced. And this is when Alabama gets announced.
Florida State or Alabama. 1 spot, the other school plays Michigan. Number 5, heartbroken. Who's number 4?
Casey Glover.
Ooh, man. You hear like, oh, that is brutal. Man, it's brutal. Ooh, Michigan. I bet you they were looking forward to that first round bye, right? Trying to play Florida State. I don't know if they were really, after Texas was announced, I mean, you were expecting Alabama to see Alabama at 4, right? So there's no reason to move Alabama or Texas to 3 if Florida State's going to be at 4. That was a brutal one. Washington, I didn't find one for Washington. I was really trying to find one. That would have been pretty cool to see. I didn't find one for Alabama either. Texas. Here's Texas. So, by the way, I don't know, what kind of setup Texas has or UT athletic department has, but it's like, here where, here the lower edge of these 2 camera angles, It's almost like they have a bar set up. I saw another camera angle where it's kind of like looking down this bar, and it's like, dude, do they have a bar in their athletics department kind of cafeteria area? It's like crazy. But really, I'm really happy that they get together for these and have kind of big gatherings for these announcements and stuff. I think it's pretty cool. So we do know Michigan, Alabama playing at the Rose Bowl, Washington, Texas playing at the Sugar Bowl. The very interesting thing is the lower seeds are favored. You know what? Maybe Michigan. I think Michigan's actually favored. Actually, I know Texas is favored by 4, which I have no idea why. No clue. No clue why Texas is favored by like 3.5, 4 points. Because Washington beat them last year in the Alamo Bowl. So it's basically just a rematch of last year's bowl game. And then Alabama and Michigan is a little bit closer. I do remember that. It's like a 1.5 point. And it might have gone back and forth between who's favored, who's not. But a lot of people talking Texas beating Washington, and I'm like, dude, I don't know about that. And I'm a Texas fan. Let me tell you, dude, Washington's good. I definitely watched that Washington-Oregon game, and Washington kind of had control of that game. They were looking really good. Michael Penix is no joke. So the area of the game that I can say Texas really needs to control is that D line. They need to control that line of scrimmage when they're on defense, and not allow Michael Penix to get out and run if he tries to. I know he tries to throw the ball a lot, but if they can really kind of control that run, that'll allow them to play a little bit more in that secondary coverage. But Texas has great defensive linemen. The Alabama-Michigan game, this is a tough one because I see Alabama probably winning that game, mostly because of the versatility Alabama has on offense. And I don't think Michigan's seen anything like that all year. I wasn't high on Michigan this year. I really wasn't. I don't think they played superior competition, especially non-conference. To me, it was kind of lacking. The hardest teams they beat, Iowa, Penn State, have no offense. We saw that in the Big Ten championship game with Iowa scoring 0 points. Ohio State was their toughest game, and they beat Ohio State. They beat them with defense. But the thing I'd say is, it's not like Ohio State had a really good quarterback, and that's where Alabama, I think, has learned to use the versatility of Jalen Milroe. So I think Alabama will probably come out on top there. That's just my perspective. I'm not trying to say Alabama's going to slaughter Michigan. I think that'll be a really good game, but I think Alabama will probably pull it out. As far as Washington, Texas, I think Washington might win that one. I think Washington probably win that one. It's really going to depend because Texas has been inconsistent towards the second half of the year, except for the past couple of games. But, Quinn Ewers missed a couple games. That was kind of the difficult part. The rest of the team played really well during those times, but the team has played really good the past 2 games that they've played. Man, that is a difficult one. Texas also has a couple injuries, especially Xavier Worthy. So if they can get everybody back, it's really going to depend on that defensive scheme. If they really, how they come out and kind of attack Washington. I think that's the side of the ball where Texas either wins or loses it. It's going to be on the defensive side. I think their offense will be okay. But this will be a fantastic rematch from last year's Alamo Bowl. I'm really looking forward to watching that one. I think that'll probably be the better game. than Michigan, Alabama. But I'm really looking forward to seeing both of those games. I think both of them would be fantastic. Anyways, yeah, that's about all I wanted to say about the rankings. It was really good. Good 4 teams. It's a great 4-team setup. I just don't know why people justified Alabama has to be in because they're the SEC champ. That's not a criteria. That's not a criteria. And the other thing I'll say about Florida State, though, is your ACC commissioner was one of 3 back in 2021 that voted to push the 12-team playoff back a year. And this won't be an issue anymore. And the only reason why they had started to move towards a 12-team playoff is because this scenario almost happened, like 7-8 years ago. So they knew it was going to happen eventually, right? They knew it was going to happen, but it always worked out and not really an issue. On championship weekend, it just, dominoes always fell that way. This is the one time where it didn't. But an undefeated ACC team somehow was left out. Yeah, that's all you got. Looking forward to bowl season. Really looking forward to this. Army-Navy game is coming up this Saturday. It'll be the only game on Saturday. Only college game on Saturday. There will be NFL on Saturday, but only college game on Saturday. So yeah, really kind of looking forward to this this bowl season, and we'll see. I'm also really looking forward to watching Florida State, Georgia, and kind of really rooting for Florida State to beat them by 10 plus points. I'm really rooting for that. Don't expect it, but I'm really rooting for it. I wouldn't put money on it, but I am really hoping to see that, because then they can take a wad of toilet paper, wipe their butt, and then send it to the committee, saying, yeah, screw you, screw all of you. Yeah, but next year there won't even be an issue. So we'll see.